Welcome to my breakout room. I work for SafetyNet. We are a IT company. We are a managed service provider in Traverse City, Michigan. What that means is there are kind of two traditional routes when it comes to working in IT. You can do what most people consider to be kind of like the classic or the standard route to being in IT, where you'd be hired by a company and you would work on their machines, their systems for their employees. I used to do that for a long time before I started working at SafetyNet. I worked in a couple of companies around Traverse City, the main one being Munson Healthcare, where I would, I worked out of an office. I had the doctors would call in and I'd either go and help them with their machines or they'd drop stuff off and I'd work on it. Pretty standard. A managed service provider is what I do now. We are a company where if you have a small or a mid-sized company where you couldn't afford a full-time IT person, you would instead contract to us. And in exchange, you get a whole team of people, but you get the work done it's like 70% remote, 30% in person. I am almost entirely in person, but there are some of our employees who only do their work remotely. The nice thing about working for an MSP versus an internal company is that I have a lot of different clients, a lot of different software, a lot of different systems. So no 2 days are the same. Whereas when I used to work for an internal company, you can become kind of the master of all of those systems. But once you've learned it all, you pretty much learned it all. And everyone's brain works differently. So one of those things might sound better to you, but an MSP works really well for me. I've been working at SafetyNet for 8 years. While I've been working here, I have gone through 3 different positions, and I wanted to kind of give a general idea of what those look like, because those are going to be the general positions that you're going to see at most IT companies. They might not be named the same thing, but they are going to be very similar as far as duties and stuff like that. There might be overlap depending upon where you work. So when I first started at SafetyNet, I worked as a desktop deployment technician. The way that works is that the only thing that I did pretty much was set up computers, get them ready for people, deploy them at people's offices, and help them make sure that everything is working. So we work with primarily Dell computers. I would take an order from a customer saying they need a new computer for this employee. I'd work with that employee to get an idea of what their job duties were, what kind of specifications they would need. We would order them the new computer, would come in, I'll get it all set up according to our check sheets, and then find a time with the employee to work with them to bring it to them, hook it up, and make sure everything worked, and then work with them to make sure that everything is working properly before I took off. It's kind of one of those things where the most of the work is done behind the scenes, but it's really important because when you do get to go on site, you get to make sure you're kind of setting that baseline for what the person is going to get to experience. If you do a really good job, it really decreases the amount of times they have to call back later, and it helps with customer satisfaction. From there, I moved up to being a support services specialist. Support services specialist is going to be what you generally think of when you think of an IT person. They will handle any kind of an issue that people are having. So they will call in and say, my printer's not working, or I can't open my email, or this program crashes every single time I click on it. And you work with them to try and troubleshoot what the problem is and get it resolved for them. The goal, obviously, to get done is, as easily and quickly as possible, take as little time out of their day as you can. From there, I moved up to being a proactive network administrator, which is what I do now, or just network administrator, depending upon what company you're at. Network administrators are kind of that next step up. We handle the more complicated tickets, the beginnings of projects for clients, kind of large scale sort of things. But we also work as a escalation for our support services team. If our support services team has been working on something, they've beaten their heads against it, or they just don't feel like they're gaining any serious traction against it, then they'll usually reach out to us and say, hey, have you seen this before? Do you have any new ideas? And most of us have been in IT for a while, so we've had a little bit more experience, or we have, been working for the company longer and we've seen that particular issue, and we work with them to make sure that it gets done. So those are the kind of, from there you can move up into much more hyper specialized things. But at the end of the day, that's the general idea of what we would do here. So I wanted to, the thing that really got me geeked out and interested in IT when I was younger was the first time that I got a chance to open up really anything in my house. Anything, if it wasn't working anymore, I didn't see any reason why I shouldn't take it apart. So I went ahead and took apart one of the computers downstairs, and I wanted to kind of give an idea of how, despite the fact that computers are sort of, they're in everything and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and depending upon what they're going to be used for, that you tend to focus on different form factors for functionality and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, a computer is actually, while it's not simple, it's made up of a pretty simple amount of parts. So when you open up your first computer, and which if you got any at home that you have not, that's not in use anymore, I would highly suggest seeing if it would be okay for you to take it apart, because you'd be surprised at how cool it can be. So this is a motherboard. This is the largest component you're going to find in most computers. And what this is basically, it's the roadmap where all of the data is going to go. It routes all of the information between all the different parts on the computer, and it makes sure that everything gets to the right place and that everything is flowing properly. So right here, we've got our CPU, our central processing unit. That's essentially the brain of the computer. That is what handles all of the input that you do, all the information that you do, and then figures out where it needs to go. From there, it would just say, hey, motherboard, send this along to the video card, send this along to the hard drive, send this along to the RAM. From there, you're going to have these little sticks of RAM right here, which I pulled one of them out. So these are kind of like a hard drive, except they are very, very fast hard drives. What it is going to do is, if you need to access something regularly, or you need to access something that's very large, if you keep asking the hard drive for it, it's going to take a long time for that data to be retrieved, and you're going to notice things like lag with opening large projects. So these are cool because what they do is the data that you're accessing regularly, be it a level in Fortnite, be it a video that you're editing, or if you're doing 3D design, it'll get loaded onto these little sticks of RAM off of the hard drive, and then your computer will be able to access them faster than it would if they were all on the hard drive. The kind of interesting thing about them, though, is when you turn off your computer, all of the data on these is gone. So it's very fast, but it's only accessible while the computer is turned on, whereas your hard drive stores the data forever. Really, from there, the only thing you would need is a way for you to be able to see, for it to output onto your monitor. So there's usually a little video port here. On nice fancy computers, you're going to have a separate video card for it. But I wanted to do something real baseline. So really, what you've got here is you've got your motherboard, you've got your CPU, you've got your RAM, you've got a way for a user to see what is going on. And as long as you have a hard drive and a way to produce power, that's it. A computer that's all it is. And that's why, for how complex they are, and it's one of those things where you can see something like this, or you can see something as small as a Raspberry Pi, which are little tiny computers. They're only about this big. And they have all of those components just really shrunk down into a tiny space. So long as you can check the box on having all of those things, congratulations, you've got a computer. And if that's something that sounds interesting to you, like I said, I would highly recommend poking around. You all have computers and electronics sitting around at home. They all eventually break, and most of them come, as long as they're not plugged in, there's no reason not to take the top off them and see what's going on inside.